from English to Spanish. Vamos a estar interpretando del inglés al español. So for the speakers and everybody involved, I would like your support in making sure this space is bilingual. One of the things that we can do is speaking more slowly, slower than you would normally speak, sort of at my pace, particularly for the speakers who may not be here yet. If they are speaking too fast, you can raise your hand and say, please speak a little slower, or we may interrupt, okay? And one signal to do that is to move our hands like this. Just speak slower. We can interpret. If I don't hear you correctly, probably others won't be understanding also. The other signal I'd like to share is to please raise your voice, even with the microphone. Can you hear me very nice right now? I'm kind of raising my voice so you can see even with the microphone. It's good to, anyway, speak louder than usual. If you see this with our hands, to please speak louder, and you can help us by looking. The interpreter will be here. You can help us. If you cannot hear, you can move your hands up and down. And then the third guideline for tonight is to simply pause if we need you to repeat. We may do this with our hands. Just pause, please, and then repeat the information. And you can help us create this multilingual space. Remember that language access is a collective effort. And we thank Working Families Party for creating language access and making sure everybody can participate fully. Nada más le estaba dando, and then my colleague is interpreting for me right now. My name is Andreina again. Karina back there. If you have any questions about language justice, please make sure to see us at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please give it up for our interpreters. Please give it up for our interpreters, helping us make this inclusive. I'm going to be your MC tonight. My name is Kei Yamamoto. I'm with the Working Families Party. And we are excited to be here today for this Congressional Candidates Forum. If you want to be woke and you hate fascism, let's just make some noise. Go ahead. We're here to find your candidate, your congressional member for the next at least 2 years. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce first our interim director of the California Working Families Party to really explain what we're doing, what this party is about, and then we'll get into the candidates. The candidates will be coming up one at a time for 30 minutes at a time. 2 of them will be joining us in person. The last one will be joining us via Zoom. And at that time, we'll do a little, turn. And for those of you joining by Discord and Zoom, you shouldn't have to turn at all. There'll be for those who are asking about questions, there's a QR code that's going around. You can submit questions at any time during the interview, and one of us will actually be helping to filter out, make sure we pick out the ones that have the most resonance among everybody here. So again, we welcome you. Let's get this kicking off, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce our interim director, Jorge Contreras.
See if I'm in a shot. So make some noise if you think the corporate Democrats and the corporate Republicans are going to make change this year. Okay, because if you would have made some noise, I would have told you to go to the event down the street. So the California Working Families Party, we believe that the two-party system is fundamentally broken, and we believe that California can be a leader and making a big difference in 2026. I want everybody to close their eyes and remember November 4th, 2016. Do folks remember that, like that night and that morning, waking up and just being in shock that our country went that direction, being in shock that the Democratic Party was so incompetent that they let that happen? I remember waking up that morning and being like, I was done with the Democratic Party at that point, and I couldn't believe that they let, I worked in politics since 2007, so I was about a decade in, and I couldn't believe I was part of an organization and a system that led us to that moment. And then open your eyes again, we did it again in 2024. Right? So like for me, it's time for a change. It's not enough to elect a great congressperson in San Francisco. It's not enough to elect an amazing mayor in New York, Zoran. It's not enough to throw down for races all across the country. We need to make fundamental change and elect thousands of candidates across the state, across the country, and build a working families movement, right? That's actually going to make a difference. And so that's what we're trying to do in California. So in the last we started in 2020. In the last 6 years, we have elected 120 elected officials across the state. And the one thing that we make sure our candidates don't do is we make sure that they don't take corporate money. Because if a Democrat or Republican, if they're beholden to the corporate interests, they're never going to have working people's interests at heart. So we're excited about what we're going to be doing here in 2026. This forum and this race is going to be crucial to that moment. This race is not just one congressional race. This is really about the future of the left and the future of the Democratic Party, right? We have 3 candidates vying for our endorsement, and this is crucial. This is a powerful seat, right? This seat was held by Nancy Pelosi for a very long time, 30 years, over 30 years, almost 40 years. So this is a huge opportunity, and that's why we wanted to open it up for the second screening to really make sure that we're making the right decision. And we really want y'all to feel part of this process. Let us know like how y'all feel. We're literally going to be following your lead, our steering committee's lead, our coalition's lead. I will say that the California Working Families Party is not one staffer. It's not one org. We're a coalition of 40 grassroots organizations, labor unions, shout out to Sal Roselli and all of our labor partners, and members. We have 80,000 members across the state, and tens of thousands of people that joined us last year who want to make a difference. You wouldn't believe the change that we've saw since 2024. The grassroots support and the momentum for California WFP is unprecedented, and we're going to make some real change. So my hope is, like, let's make sure to ask some good questions, but think about not just this race, think about the future of this country and the future of this state, because we got to make a difference. So my hope is that this year we turn that 120 elected officials to over 250 around the state who will not take corporate interests, that will not take corporate money, will not follow corporate interests. And I just want to say for parents in the room, our people are thinking about parents, the city council members, the school board members, the local electeds that you elect today are going to be our next Congress people and assembly members and governors in the next 10, 20 years. So the work that you put in now is going to affect the next 20 years of our political life. So thank you all for coming. We're excited to have you. Please join California WP. Please get involved in this race, and please get involved in building the party of our dreams. Thank you. And I'll pass it back to Kay.
All right, give it up for our director, Jorge. He's leading us through the trenches. And I'll share again the format for today. Each candidate's going to come up here, 30 minutes. Questions will be asked. If you would like to ask a question, the QR code is floating amongst us. And if you're on Zoom or Discord, it's being dropped in the chat. And that is a way for you to ask questions at any moment in time. And one of the things that we heard loud and clear at the last moderated forum was that the questions were moderator heavy. So we're a party of the people. We're a party of you. We heard you, and now we're implementing that. And that's what we could do when we build the party of our dreams. We can be in control of moderated forums like this. We can be in control of who's in office. So I'll make the pitch again, following up Jorge. Please become a dues-paying member. Yes, the $10 a month does go to a fund to help elect candidates who are going to help us get things like universal health care, child care, meaningful jobs. But the other part of it is that this party is made up of dues-paying members who get to direct the direction of the party to make endorsements. And we want to build with you. We want to host events. We want to do all sorts of things, scavenger hunts, soccer games. That's something we can do together. So please become a member, and it'll be over there when the time comes. Moving on to the show here. We would like to invite here Saikat Chakrabarti. He is a organizer. He is a tech entrepreneur. He helped create Justice Democrats that elected Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and he was her chief of staff before coming back to the Bay in San Francisco and doing what he does now is building up the tech sphere and work here for all of us. So we'd like to invite Saikat Chakrabarti onto the stage.
Can y'all hear me now? All right, great. Well, I'm so excited to be with y'all, and thank y'all for having me here. And I'm guessing
Oh, sorry.
you're gonna ask me questions, right?
Sorry about that. Yes, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
I could
please
just launch in my
continue to
rally
stand
speech.
up.
But...
Yeah, that's my bad. Yeah, we'll be asking you questions.
right.
They're going to be coming from the audience. If you'd like to open up and say a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
let's go ahead, and then we'll be moving on to the questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I came out to San Francisco when I was 23 back in 2009. And as you mentioned, I did work in the tech industry at first. I worked here in the tech industry for about a couple years because I thought I'd be tackling some of the biggest challenges facing society through tech. And turns out I was wrong. Living in San Francisco, seeing the cost of living crisis really all around me, led me to quit. I wasn't political at all at the time, so I was looking around at maybe nonprofits, and that was around the time that Bernie Sanders started running for president, talking about the actual issues facing working people. So I ended up joining the Bernie campaign in 2016. I worked as his director of organizing technology, and then there's a group of us from that campaign who realized that even if Bernie won, we wouldn't be able to get the political revolution without a Congress to back him, right? So we started Justice Democrats, which was a project to recruit non-career politicians taking no corporate money to challenge not just Republicans, but also corporate Democrats, which was very controversial at the time. But that was the project that we used, through which we ended up recruiting AOC. I ended up running her campaign in 2018. And then when she won, I went to DC and I worked as her chief of staff, where I was in charge of writing and launching the Green New Deal. So I don't want to take up too much time talking about myself in my intro. I want to open it up to questions, but I just want to say I have seen how the sausage gets made in DC, and it does not usually get made. Corporate money controls everything there, and people spend 6 to 8 hours a day. Congress people spend 6 to 8 hours a day dialing for dollars. That's their main job. We have to break corporate money in our system if we want to get any of this stuff done. So it's not going to just be about taking on MAGA Republicans in 2026. We have to take on the corporate establishment Democrats as well. Jorge is right. We're in a massive change moment right now. And so it's possible. I'm running because I believe all this stuff can actually happen. So
thanks so much, Saikat.
Right.
And Mr. Chakrabarti, we're going to go to the first person to ask a question. It'll be Ruth. And for pacing, please make each answer about 2 to 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Ruth Ferguson. I'm a trustee on the City College Board of Trustees. Our question tonight is, what Congress members or senators do you see yourself working with the most, and what caucuses would you join and why?
It's a great question. I would absolutely be working with my former boss, AOC, and also many of the members of the squad. I believe people like Maxwell Frost, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. These have been some of the most courageous progressives in Congress. I'd, of course, join the Congressional Progressive Caucus when I'm there. I've been talking to Congressional Progressive Caucus on and off for years. And every single cycle, they tell me, you know what we wish we had? We wish we had some members of Congress who would organize other members of Congress and challenge leadership, challenge Democratic leadership to actually exact leverage and get real wins for working people. And they never get it. So what I'm interested in doing most is not just working with a lot of the folks who are in there right now, but also organizing with a bunch of the amazing progressive candidates who are running all around the country right now, challenging a corporate status quo, including many WFP candidates. And we have to actually build a team before we get in there, because I've seen how this happens. If you end up going to Congress and you don't already have a plan of action, leadership will pick you apart. They're going to try to divide you, and they're going to make sure that we don't actually get progressive priorities passed. So I think there's a real chance in 2026 that there's 10 or 15 of us who go in there and actually hold the line, say, we're not going to vote for you, Hakeem Jeffries, for Speaker, unless we get ACA subsidies restored, unless we get Medicaid cuts restored, unless we stop funding a genocide in Gaza, right? Actually get this stuff passed. But great question. I believe there's a real big progressive team that we can actually work together and get stuff done in 26 even.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chakrabarti. We're going to go to the second question over here to Stephen.
Sorry. It's all good. Hi, I'm John Fields. I'm a freelance production manager here in the Bay Area. Obviously, about the pace of Congress being very, very slow, and I guess it takes many years to pass legislation. What is a single piece of legislation that you would champion, and why do you think that it can get passed?
So I'm going to break it up in 2026 and 2028, because in 2026, we still have Donald Trump as president. So I think it's going to be very difficult to get, say, Medicare for all passed. But the way I see this is there's a lot of issues where there is a huge bipartisan consensus amongst Democrats and Republicans when it comes to especially anti-corruption and foreign policy. So I look at things like banning congressional stock trading, banning the revolving door between Congress and the lobbying industry, doing anything we can to get big money out of politics. That stuff polls at like 90% amongst Republicans, right? And you even have Republican members of Congress who support some of that stuff. So whenever you have an opportunity like that, where there's this policy that most people support, but the politicians don't, you have to force the vote. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to file a discharge petition to force a vote on banning members of Congress from trading stock, on things like banning the revolving door between Congress and the lobbying industry. This is the same tactic that we just saw Ro Khanna and Tom Massey use to force a vote on the release of the Epstein files. The thing about filing discharge petitions is leadership hates it, right? Because you're basically going around the Speaker of the House to force a vote on something. I don't care about that, but this is the kind of thing that works on especially bipartisan things. We used it in the past on McCain-Feingold campaign finance reform. It's actually also the way we got to vote on the Civil Rights Act back in the 60s. So that's stuff I can actually get done in 2026. On foreign policy, similar sort of thing. We have about, I think it's only 3% of Democrats and 16% of Republicans who want to see an increase in the defense budget. And yet we have 115 Democrats who just voted for a $900 billion defense budget that Trump signed into law. So I'm going to hold the line on not increasing our defense budget. I mean, we need to actually drastically cut our defense budget. So that's 2026. But going into 2028, I think 2028 is going to be the most important election of our lifetime. I know people always say that, but it's true this time. I mean, we are living in an authoritarian coup. What else? How much worse does it have to get? If we can't actually transform our economy and pass Medicare for all, pass universal child care, pass affordable housing for all, then we're going to get King Vance in 2032. So I don't see this as a single piece of legislation. In 2028, we have to have somebody running for president, a huge movement of people running for Congress, hundreds of people running for Congress, on a real plan to build a new society that works for working people. And that's possible. In fact, it's the only way we get out of this mess.
Thank you, Mr. Chakrabarti. We'll go to the third question. Also over here to Jasmine.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Wen. I'm a tech worker here in SF and also a member of WFP. And my question is, increasingly, American voters are becoming more disillusioned with the two major parties. Do you support third parties having a stronger voice in American politics? And if so, how would you go about making this happen?
Absolutely. I would love to see actual voting reform get passed, things like ranked choice voting. I mean, I'd love to see a proportional representation system. That's maybe not, that might be hard to actually get done given our current constitution. But, I think a lot of this, the reason I'm running in the Democratic Party is I actually think the entire Democratic Party is possible change. Ultimately, the party is the people that make it up. And the current Democratic establishment might be too far gone, but we have to replace them. And that's what I'm going to be calling to do. I'm calling for primary challenges of other Democrats all across the country. And then I would like to see us to get to, actual electoral reform where third parties have a real chance of making it in. And I think right now, the fastest way to get there is probably implementing ranked choice voting all across the country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chakrabarti. The fourth question is coming here to Sally.
Hi there, Sally with San Francisco Rising Action Fund and also Working Families Party. The next question is, how will you preserve and prioritize working families' right to clean air, clean water, and open space? And how will you commit to holding corporate polluters and oil companies accountable?
It's a great question. What you just mentioned, we sometimes talked about under the umbrella of environmental justice when I was working on the Green New Deal. And it was kind of a central bit of what we were trying to push with the Green New Deal was take a lot of the environmental justice movement, which had existed for a long time before any of the work we did, and forefront it. And I was pretty proud that, the Inflation Reduction Act ended up having a lot of environmental justice stipulations in there. We have to expand that. I think the Green New Deal was a great first step, but we actually have to implement this on a society level. That means direct federal funding for ensuring clean air, clean water, reversing all the cuts that are being made to the EPA regulations, making sure that any building that we do, any development that we do is happening with actual clean air, clean water, and other prevention of any sort of toxic waste poisoning our neighborhoods. There's a huge problem in San Francisco, especially in Bayview Hunters Point, where we have a ton of toxic waste in Hunters Point right now. They're talking about a massive housing development there, and that's actually under federal jurisdiction. As your congressperson, I'm going to make sure that we have no housing development in Hunters Point until we do a full remediation cleanup of that site, because people in Bayview are suffering. They're suffering from higher rates of cancer than many other places in the city. When it comes to holding the fossil fuel companies and toxic polluters accountable, you have to pass legislation to make sure they can be held accountable. But with oil companies and fossil fuel companies, if we're serious about tackling climate change, I believe we have to nationalize the oil companies and the fossil fuel companies and transition them away from fossil fuels, because there is a workforce that exists in the fossil fuel industry right now. And it's a very highly skilled workforce. They're working people who know how to do amazing jobs. Those skills, offshore oil drillers, their skills can be used towards offshore wind farms. People who've worked on fracking, their skills can be used towards plugging all these natural gas, these methane emitting natural gas fracking holes that are all over the country. So, that kind of a transition, I don't think we can rely on the private markets to do on its own without hurting working people. So I do have a plan at my think tank at New Consensus that calls for, eventually taking over these companies, transitioning them away from fossil fuels, and using the skilled workforce towards things that we actually want as a nation.
Thank you. We're actually going to jump over here now because it's been over there. And just so that for transparency, the people asking the questions are asking questions that the audience has come up with, but the people I know I'm not putting on the spot by giving the mic. So just want to give that.
Thank you. Peter Stevens, San Francisco member rep. What policies do you support to make sure that the richest among us, billionaires and corporations, pay their fair share?
Yeah, so I call for a wealth tax on billionaires and centimillionaires, on anybody with over $50 million in assets. I see inequality as being a problem in and of itself. It's one of the drivers of the affordability crisis, because when a small group of people own a huge share of the wealth, that means businesses get built to serve that group of people, for folks who have the capital. And what we've seen over the last several decades is there's been about a $79 trillion transfer of wealth from working people to the richest in our society. And that was policy that did that, right? That was tax policy that did it. That was Fed policy that did it, where we just kept, pumping money into Wall Street to prop up these asset bubbles. And so it's, high time that we have policy that claws that back to working people. So a wealth tax, we got to end all the loopholes for wealthy people to be able to hide all their money to create in tax shelters. And we have to, in general, increase progressive taxation, reverse the Trump's tax cuts. Our tax policy has to be completely redone to serve working people and not just the wealthiest in our country.
Thank you, Mr. Chakrabarti. We're going to actually unveil another member up here to ask question number 6. We're going to give the mic to Lisette.
Hi there, Lisette from San Mateo County. Last year, many of our aligned organizations, including us, the California Working Families Party, in San Francisco supported Dean Preston and Cheyenne Chen for supervisor and Aaron Peskin for mayor. However, you chose to support Bilal Mahmoud, Michael Lai, and Daniel Lurie last year. Why did you support these candidates against our endorsed candidates?
Great question. I'll go through them one by one. When it comes to Michael Lai, I've said that was an oversight on my part. For my former friend and one of my bosses actually on the Bernie campaign was working on his campaign, vouched for him, brought him up to me. I talked to him and donated some money. I should have done more research on that race. When it comes to Bilal, I've known Bilal for several years. And I believe he's a progressive. We wrote an op-ed together on how to do a Green New Deal for California. And as a supervisor, he's supported the Overpaid CEO Act that's coming up on the ballot. He just announced ice-free zones in the city. One of his first acts was to do the One Shelter Act to spread homeless shelters across the city, which I believe Supervisor Chan actually voted against that one. But also, I would be lying if I didn't admit, I was excited to see the first South Asian supervisor in the city and first Muslim supervisor in the city, especially in a district that's had an influx of Muslim refugees from all around the country. I want to put this in context, though. Like every cycle, I try to support many candidates and many causes all across the country, and especially in California. So last cycle, my biggest efforts were towards Prop 5, which was a ballot proposition to dramatically increase the amount of affordable housing, to make it easier to pass affordable housing bonds. It would have unleashed potentially tens of billions of dollars in affordable housing bonds for the entire state. And I did a lot of work defending candidates, especially Justice Democrats candidates who were under attack from AIPAC. So folks like Jamal Bowman, Summer Lee, Cori Bush. And so, when you support a lot of candidates and causes, I understand that it's not always going to line up with everything, but I try to do my best on it.
Thank you. And we've got question number.
Oh, sorry,
6
you mentioned Lurie, right? Yeah, on Lurie, I'll be honest, I was not a fan of any of the people running for mayor. I don't agree with everything that, former Supervisor Peskin has been for. I also don't agree with a lot that Daniel Lurie was for. So I actually ranked them 1 and 2. So Peskin was my second choice. Lurie was my first choice. I mean, I think he's been okay. Like there are some things that I've liked. Like I like his childcare plans. I haven't liked his cuts on when it comes to MTA.
Thank you, Mr. Chakrabarti, and thanks for your patience there for me jumping in a little early. I'm going to give the mic to Danny.
Hi, Danny, one of your Bay Area member reps here. So you first came to San Francisco 17 years ago, then left to manage AOC's campaign and work in DC before coming back a few years ago. Why are you starting to engage in San Francisco politics now? And why didn't you start engaging in San Francisco progressive communities years ago?
Yeah, I've engaged in San Francisco more on the nonprofit side from the time that I've been involved. And it's, I've worked with the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, with NPH, with Housing Accelerator Fund, largely on food and housing issues. But you're right. As I mentioned when I started off, like when I first came to San Francisco, I wasn't very political at all. And that's why I engaged on the nonprofit side initially. I got political through my work in federal politics and national politics. I worked on the Bernie campaign. Did Justice Democrats have spent pretty much 10 years in progressive politics at the national level. And frankly, that's why I'm running for Congress. If I wanted to run for supervisor or something else in the city, I'd start by volunteering and working on campaigns here and working my way up the way I've done in national politics. But yeah, that's just been the focus of my work. That's where I think I know what needs to happen and I have a very clear vision of what the blockers are.
Thank you. We'll go to Jasmine for our audience question.
Yeah. Hi again. So an audience question here is, will you champion a federal job guarantee as a response to the threat of technological unemployment due to AI, and how will you regulate AI?
It's absolutely. Yeah, I think it's crucial. And I think right now, a lot of what we're seeing on AI, I basically think of it as there's a few different buckets of regulation that need to happen. One is inappropriate use of AI in day-to-day life, right? So when you see AI doing things like denying health insurance claims, that kind of thing needs to be regulated and stopped, full stop. But then there's this larger question of AI potentially replacing half of all the jobs, potentially wiping out humanity. That's what the tech leaders are saying. When it comes to something like that, I have not seen anybody talking about regulations at the scale of that problem, because that's ultimately not something you can regulate away. This is about control. If we're talking about change that big, we're saying a handful of CEOs get to decide the future of our entire society. Why? Why should they have that kind of power? They shouldn't. I believe AI, we should actually have public ownership of AI and in this technology. We should be treating it like a utility, and we should be having labor actually deciding how AI gets introduced into the workforce. And an example I often use is if you look at how automation got introduced in America versus in Germany, automation in car manufacturing. In Germany, they have labor, corporations, and government that all sit on the boards of their major auto manufacturers, and they make actual industrial plans, 5-10-year plans. And the result of that is, after about 10 years of automation and car manufacturing in Germany, their workers made double the wages of their American counterparts. They actually also made more cars per capita than in America, and they had more automation. So that could be possible to do with AI. We could make sure the productivity gains from this technology go to people, not just to these CEOs, but it's not the default way. It's not going to be what happens if we just let things go on the way they go on right now. So I'd like to see actual, public stake in this stuff so we control the direction of where this technology goes.
Thank you. We'll go to another audience question asked by Ruth.
So regarding the SFUSD teacher strike, tactically, what would you do right now to help? And strategically, how could you have helped to prevent the next strike or to prevent the next one?
Tactically, the thing we can do right now is show up and support our educators, show up and support our teachers. I was at the picket line this morning at Tenderloin Community School. I went to a rally. It was a massive showing at the rally. And we have to have that keep growing. We've already seen the school give in on one of the demands that the teachers have been asking for, which is for enshrining schools as sanctuary zones against ICE. This is something that doesn't even cost the district anything. They should have done this months ago, but now they're finally doing it. And we know that the district has money for these salaries, for the demands that the teachers are asking for, because they have an emergency fund. And this is an emergency. I believe the cost of living crisis is an emergency. So the way to prevent this in the future is we do have to, I think, have structural changes in how we fund our public schools. So this is not something that I'd like to see us continuing on where we're just like fighting over a shrinking pool of money. I believe we've got to change how we fund public schools, not just at the state level, but at the federal level. We need to have direct federal funding for public schools. We should be treating schools like infrastructure, not going through these cycles where, if enrollment goes up, one year we suddenly have more money. If enrollment gets cut, we have less money. It's a very short-term focused way of funding this stuff. We should be funding it permanently. And if enrollment goes down and class sizes go down, that's fine. That's how we should be treating it, right? It shouldn't be something where we lose money because of that.
Thank you. And we're doing this rapid fire. So appreciate everybody here. We're going to give it to John again.
This audience question comes from Sacha Z. And they're a community college student and a volunteer at the Red Cross, and they've personally experienced how equity gaps in both education and healthcare have prevented young people from pursuing their dreams. What are your concrete policies that you'll pursue in Congress to ensure that young San Franciscans are able to afford quality healthcare and quality education?
Yeah, first off, for quality healthcare, we have to have Medicare for all. And I'm not somebody who thinks of Medicare for all as some faraway goal to someday move towards. I believe that's what we have to do in the next election or two, because it has come to a crisis point. The healthcare costs in this country are skyrocketing. It's getting harder and harder for young people. And the cost of living crisis in general that we talk about, young people are facing it hardest. Young people are looking at a future where they're never going to be able to afford a home or, afford to raise a family. And that's why I think you often see young people most willing to vote for anybody who's talking about dramatic change, because that's the scale of the problem that we're at right now. Frankly, I believe Medicare for all is a bit of a compromised position. I think single payer, it would be great, but it won't actually solve this other problem we have right now of healthcare deserts all around the country. There are many counties all around America where people don't have any access to quality healthcare, and we actually have to have government provided healthcare. And we have government provided healthcare right now in our VA system. And San Francisco has an amazing VA system. It's one of the best research VAs in the country. It might be the best research VA in the country. UCSF doctors train at the VA in San Francisco. So we should be expanding that, what's working right now. And he said quality healthcare, and what was the other question? Higher quality education. On education, we have to have tuition-free public colleges and trade schools. We should be treating education as an investment, and frankly, we can absolutely afford it. I remember when I was in Congress, I looked at what it would cost to do tuition-free public colleges and trade schools. It was about $80 billion. Guess how much we increased the defense budget by that year? $80 billion, right? That's a choice. That's a decision to prioritize dropping bombs over educating our young people today. So we can do it. And once you have a public program like that, you can expand it, make it. You can choose to improve it over and over again. But we have to get to tuition-free public colleges and trade schools.
Thank you. We're gonna go on this side. Just want to give this side some love. And this question from Lisa: what are your views on the displacement of families in San Francisco, and how do you plan to strengthen tenant power in San Francisco?
Yeah, my views are it's bad. No one should be getting displaced from San Francisco. This is a huge problem, and it's being driven by the cost of living crisis, but it's also being driven by a lack of any federal tools and policies to help folks at risk of displacement. So, one, to try to get the cost of living down when it comes to housing, first of all, we have to have every tool at our disposal to make sure we have deeply affordable housing getting built. So we need to build tons more social housing. And right now at a federal level, it's in fact illegal to build new public housing because of something called the Faircloth Amendment. So we have to repeal that. We also have to, at a federal level, actually have public financing to create this social housing. So I call for creating something called a Reconstruction Finance Corporation. I know this sometimes sounds wonky when I bring it up, but the RFC is something we had back in the New Deal and the World War II era. And it has the ability not just to, offer low-cost loans for construction. It has the ability to do way more than that. It can do things like stockpile lumber and steel to bring inflation down and construction costs. It has the power to spin off public developers to directly build social housing when private markets won't do it. So that's one piece of the puzzle. But the other piece is actually protecting people right now who are at risk of displacement. So I call for massively increasing rental vouchers, having federal recognition for tenants unions, having federal funding for community land trusts to create, to basically reduce speculation in our housing markets. And then the other piece of this is, we see displacement sometimes happening from private equity and hedge funds that come in and speculate on housing. They're treating housing like a commodity. And housing should not be a commodity. It should be a thing for people to live in, not something to trade on Wall Street. So we need to ban large private equity hedge funds, large landowners from just scooping up housing en masse as a way for them to speculate on this. And then I will use my power in Congress of oversight of holding these corporate landlords accountable when they break the law.
Thank you. And we've got one last question here. We'll go to Peter.
Thank you. What would you propose to rein in ICE, and do you support abolishing ICE?
We have to abolish ICE. We have to abolish ICE. ICE is it's an out of control agency. It is Trump's personal paramilitary right now. It's funded at the level of Canada's military. It's got a bigger budget than every military other than America and China. And when an agency is so out of control, there's no way to reform it. So we have to abolish ICE and basically start from ground one. But yeah, do you say, I forgot what the other piece of that was. I got so excited about abolishing ICE. But I think it was a general question about immigration. But, we have to, my view on immigration is we have to go back to a place of actually being humane, where we actually welcome immigrants. My parents immigrated to this country in the 1970s, and this is really hard to imagine today, but we actually had immigration offices all over the world back then that were begging people to come here. We were recruiting immigrants to come. That's how my dad got here. Like a friend of his took him to an immigration office in Calcutta where the staffer, pitched him on the American dream and convinced him to apply for a visa. And so he grew up extremely poor, and he showed up here with literally $8 in his pocket, and that was enough. That was the American dream. That's what so many people were able to achieve back then. So I believe we have to get back to that mindset. And part of this means making it easier to come to this country legally, making it so that we're actually seeing immigration as our strength, which most people in this country actually do believe. It's hard to imagine, but most people do believe that. And a big part of what I believe the Democratic Party needs to do is proactively pitch a vision on immigration that's not just reactive to what the Republicans are pitching, because they're pitching cruelty, and I don't want to compromise with cruelty. We have to pitch our own vision of why immigration is good, why it's better for us to invite more and more people into our nation, and why this is a source of our strength, and then convince people on that.
Thank you. And we've got about 1 minute for our closing statement, and for the courtesy of our next candidate. So you have a 1 minute closing statement.
All right. I appreciate that. Look, I loved a lot of what Jorge was saying. I know, I've worked with Working Families Party in other races all across the country, and know what y'all are about, which is about creating an actual Democratic Party, or a Working Families Party that is for working people and not for the corporations. And that always seems like, I don't know, it somehow sometimes feels kind of pie in the sky. But I really want to emphasize this. This is possible. I've been working in progressive politics for years now, And I have never seen a moment of change like what I'm seeing today. I mean, we just saw Zoran win in New York, right? And there are candidates running all across the country who are saying that they want to challenge a corporate status quo. And when I talk to them, they are not asking me for just like help on their race. They're asking me, what are we going to do together to make this a reality? And that's why I'm running, because it's not going to be enough just to go in there and fight Trump. We have to remake what politics is, and we can remake society. We can actually get this stuff done in the next 4 years. So thank you all for having me here. I hope that was not more than a minute.
That was perfect. Give it up
And,
for Mr. Chakrabarti. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Give it up for Mr. Chakrabarti again. And we're going to invite our next candidate up. And also, let me just pitch again, dues paying membership. Please join the Working Families Party. We really appreciated all your questions. If you want the party to endorse a candidate like Saikat or Supervisor Chan or Senator Wiener, you can do so as a member, and you can do so as a dues-paying member. So please go ahead and take out your phone at some point and become a dues-paying member. I'm also going to hand this out to anybody who'd like it, who's got a question for our upcoming candidate. And we'd like to, in a moment, invite Supervisor Connie Chan, who's the second candidate here today, running for the famous seat that Nancy Pelosi has represented for many, many decades. Supervisor Chan has served as San Francisco Supervisor for District 1 since 2021 and is currently chairs the board's Budget Committee, bringing over a decade of city government experience. She is an immigrant, a child of immigrant. She came here from Hong Kong and came to San Francisco as a teenager, which is a story many of us are familiar with. So I would like to bring up and invite Supervisor Connie Chan. And once again, just as a reminder of the format, we'll be asking several questions. Each candidate will have about 30 minutes to do so. And if you'd like to ask a question, the QR codes are floating around. Congresswoman Chan, the first question we'd like to just kick it off to you with is, what congressional members or senators do you see yourself working with most, and what caucuses would you join and why? Oh, thank you. Thank you. And please go ahead and provide an opening statement, and you got a sneak peek into the next question.
Thank
and
you.
That's my bad. I
You're like,
appreciate
don't
you looking
skip
out
her.
for me.
Well, it's good to be with all of you here this evening. My name is Connie Chan. I am currently a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, and also currently, this is my 4th year as the Budget Committee Chair in San Francisco. I came to San Francisco's Chinatown when I was 13 years old with my single mom and a younger brother. So I grew up in San Francisco, went to Galileo High, and before I ran for office, I worked in San Francisco city government for almost 20 years, starting as a legislative aide on the board of supervisor for former Supervisor Sophie Maxwell, and then to then District Attorney Kamala Harris, Rec and Park Department and City College in San Francisco. But right before I ran for office, I was also a staffer for then Assembly member Kevin Mullen, now our Congress member for representing the San Mateo County. I am really just grateful to be able to sit at this chair with all of you here tonight. I think I see some familiar faces, and it's really good. And for the work that we have done since I took office in 2021, which is the peak of pandemic. And during this time, took office and then became the Budget Committee Chair. We went through some really tough time in San Francisco for the COVID recovery. And then just last year when Trump took office, cutting our healthcare, cutting our food security. But we have done a lot of work together to make sure that we still protect and serve our most vulnerable in San Francisco. That's our youth, our seniors, people with disabilities, our LGBTQ community, and our immigrant community. So I really am grateful for the work that we have done. And when Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi decided not to run for re-election, it's a moment that we decided to step up to the plate. and understand that this is a moment that we have to bring the working people's agenda from San Francisco, like the work that we have done here together, that we're going to bring it all the way to Washington, D.C., because this is the moment. This is the moment that working people have to have a voice, not just in San Francisco, but we got to bring it to D.C. and push back on the Trump administration. And I'm confident that together, as the coalition that we have built in San Francisco, we're going to take that and build and take this very same coalition to Washington, D.C. and win. Thank you.
Thank you. And the first question is, and we'll be asking some of the same questions to all candidates, and then also including specific questions from the audience for specific candidates. So the first question is, what congressional members or senators do you see yourself working with most? What caucuses would you join and why?
I am so excited. You should know. Since we jumped in the race, I have been really working hard and really eager to earn the endorsement of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. It's amazing. And if you look at the list of who's who, including the former, Congresswoman Jayapal, she's the former chair of that. Of course, there are members like Congressman Latifah Simon that's on it. It's thank you. I feel the same way about her. So it really is the Progressive Caucus. I'm very eager to join them. And if you look at the agenda they have been doing, Medicare for all, it's very exciting and so many more to list. And when I was going through their questionnaire, I have never been so excited to go through a questionnaire where it's like, these are going to be our policy agenda. I'm so excited to join them to be able to work on those. And so for that, I'm really grateful. I'm like, you're like moving everywhere. I'm trying to track you. Okay.
Hello, Supervisor Chan. Thank you so much for being here. I'm John Fields. Mentioned it. I asked this question earlier to Mr. Chakrabarti, but obviously one of the realities of working in Congress is that the pace of change is very slow compared to the state and local level. And obviously it takes many years to pass legislation. I guess, what is a single piece of legislation that you will champion, and why do you think that it will pass?
Yeah, I definitely have that. But I would say that first thing that I will want to do, it really is to do my homework. And that's probably deeply in me and thinking about as a budget committee chair in San Francisco. What I really want to do is also to comb through the appropriation bill, right? And just kind of really thinking about both the defense and the non-defense budget that our federal government has, and start thinking about how do we actually really appropriate funding for the working people, and making sure that the Trump administrations and really through the power of Congress, that we fund healthcare, we fund education, and we make sure that we have comprehensive immigration reform. But the one policy and one bill that I really eager to jump on is the Health Equity and Accountability Act. And that is really through the Congresswoman Judy Chu, who has endorsed our campaign. And this bill is specifically to address health disparity among the people of color and communities of color, and really also diversify healthcare workforce. It address issues like mental health. It address issue like mother and maternal and infant health, and as well as and again, non-citizen coverage for healthcare. These are the issues that Health Equity and Accountability Act is something that I'm very eager to carry and push forward.
Thank you, Supervisor. And for those of us asking questions, and as well as for you, Supervisor, our interpreters are asking us to speak a little bit slowly. They'll do this signal to speak slower, or this signal to speak louder, and they'll be there and here. So we'll go to the next question to Ruth.
Increasingly, American voters are becoming more disillusioned and fed up with both of the two major parties. Do you support third parties having a stronger voice in American politics? And if so, how will you make this happen?
Thank you. It's good to see you, Trustee Ferguson. The question is like, how do we support the third party and beyond this two party? Let me also just say that I think it's really about investing in the next generation of young leader. I think that and along with voter education and voters outreach. And I really see the value in that. And I would say this as an immigrant and a naturalized citizen in San Francisco, and recognizing that voting rights it's very important. But what is also important is to really be it citizen and non-citizen, and those who are pathway to become citizen, to understand voting is very important. Whichever party you're with, I think that voting and voter education, in my opinion, is even more critical than about having a third party or different party, because voter education is fundamentally what protects democracy. And and getting people to not only register to vote, but to actually vote. And I say this both as a candidate, but also as someone that has been going on different campaigning and ballot measure, and really encouraging people to let them know when they vote, they have a voice. But also when they vote, they should also think about, and this is about voter education, about what they're voting for, and really go through those materials and booklets and before they cast their votes. So I hope that answered your question. I think at the end of the day, it's really about voter education more than party politics.
Thank you. We'll go to Jasmine for the next question.
Hi, my question is, how will you preserve and prioritize working families' rights to clean air, clean water, and open space? Will you commit to holding corporate polluters and oil companies accountable?
Absolutely. I have learned so much about, environmental justice from my former boss, Supervisor Sophie Maxwell, who really championed to shut down the marine power plants in San Francisco, and understanding that power plants not only polluting our environment, and where it was actually located. It was located in the most neglected and underserved community among the Black and Brown community, living in Bayview Hunters Point, living near Patrol Hill. And to understand that once you shut down a power plant, while it is great for the environment, but also there's so much work to be done for a environmental justice, just transition for the communities that has been significantly impacted by something like a power plant. And so to actually understand, to invest into a just transition, to understand that we need to make sure that corporations pay for their fair share, but to also regulate them. For far too long, that we have put environmental justice and environmental causes as individual responsibilities. Certainly that is true. We got to do our recycling. We got to actually use less plastic and reuse as much as we can. But at the end of the day, it is about regulating plastic, fossil fuel, and oil industries. There's no way to get around it, to say that if we want a better future and cleaner air and better environment, we have to hold the industry accountable. Same thing that I have learned from Supervisor Sophie Maxwell, shutting down the power plant, holding PG&E accountable, and making sure that San Francisco have renewable energy, which what now known to be Clean Power SF. All these work has to be done, and it does start with regulating the industry.
Thank you. And now I'm over here. One thing about one mic, one voice is you're going to get your steps if you're an MC. We'll go to Peter.
Thanks, Connie. You kind of alluded to this in your previous answer, but what policies do you support to make sure the richest among us, billionaires and corporations pay their fair share?
Oh, look, I do support that one-time 5% tax on our billionaires that is happening in San Francisco, but also in California, I should say. And in San Francisco, we're making sure that overpaid CEO tax are paying their fair share too. But you hear it, they cry foul. They said, well, California, if you tax us, we're going to go to Florida, we're going to go to Texas because that's, better for us, for them to do tax evasion. And I say, well, let's not only tax them in California, then in Congress, we're going to tax them in every state in the United States.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are going to go to the left side now, show the left side some love.
Hi, Supervisor Chan. My name is Joshua. Many of your critics note that you have opposed closing the Great Highway and also the family zoning plan, and that zoned much of the city for denser housing. Why did you oppose those efforts? And what is your general view of housing growth and transportation in San Francisco?
Because what I believe is, again, if we mean what we say when we say we're here to ensure that working people can thrive in San Francisco, then here's the questions about both the family zoning plan and Proposition K. The family zoning plan, that within that, it doesn't have any protections for small business, and in fact, it also lacks protection for those who live in rent control units, including our tenants. And that is the reason why that while I was really hoping that I could amend and get support to amend the family zoning plan, again, to make sure that we have protections for our small business and more protections for our tenants, at the end of the day is to fight against real estate speculative investments and displacements. And that is really key to working people in San Francisco. I know that there are working people in San Francisco, like our teachers, our nurses, our first responders, who are able to live in the city because they actually live in a rent control unit. And without that protection, we're literally putting them at risk of displacement. So that's one reason why I voted against the family zoning plan. About Proposition K, and for those of you, I think you all know what Proposition K is basically this debate that is so contested on the west side about closing down the Great Highway. Now, look, I do believe that we can have and we should have better transit system, because once we have a better public transit system, people will want to ditch their cars. That is really what our goal and vision should be, to invest in our public transit system. So full stop, we got to do that. But before we are able to say to people, here's an underground on the west side where you can take a subway to connect to the other side, but also have better transit that is north-south direction, like bus directing in those directions that people can actually get to work and get to school easily. Then the question is, are there access and route for them people to have to drive their cars? And right now, for just simply closing down Great Highway, it's not solving that problem. And what I believe is to solve that problem is to, again, invest in public transit.
Thank you. We'll go back to this side to Lena.
Hi, Supervisor. You have previously voted to increase police funding in San Francisco. As a member of Congress, will that impact how you handle protecting San Franciscans from ICE and federal law enforcement? Do you support abolishing ICE?
I support abolishing ICE. ICE is a lawless agency. It is an agency right now killing Americans, unleashing ICE agents on our streets, violating people's First Amendment rights, and violating due process. And it's been separating families and detaining people, and thousands of them across the nation. It is unacceptable. It needs to stop. I do also believe that we can fund public safety, but also still have accountability. And I also believe that when you look at a budget, it's in proportion of the entire budget. In San Francisco, our Department of Public Health budget is $2 billion versus, yes, it's quite a large sum for the police department. It's roughly about $800 million. But look at what Trump administration is doing. It is cutting healthcare, taking away food security, giving tax break to the billionaires, and then adding to the military funding by $1.5 trillion. And that is not the way you do budget. That is not a budget for American people. And that's not a budget for public safety, in my opinion.
Thank you. We'll go to Ruth again.
So progressives have pushed legislation to address housing affordability for years, yet inaction by some Democrats has allowed Trump Republicans to co-opt this issue. AB 1240, authored by Working Families Party Assembly member Alex Lee, would limit corporate ownership of single-family homes, but it stalled in the state legislature last year. That is until very recently when Trump announced he's pushing the same issue, and Newsom responded by announcing he's now asking our legislature to do the same thing. What concrete actions should Democratic lawmakers take to champion a progressive housing affordability agenda before Republicans beat them to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, by the way, Assembly member Alex Lee, great leader, really around housing issue, really actually being able to reach that balance of understanding protection for tenants, but also to build housing that people can afford. I really appreciate his work. look, there again is I know that there's a notion about that Trump has these policy ideas. The problem is he doesn't do them. He says them, but he doesn't do them. And that does still means that the responsibility falls back onto Democrats and that we have to do the work. So I think that at the end of the day, it's about doing that work and pushing it forward. I do agree, though, that more often time, and this is my perspective in San Francisco, that corporate Democrats say one thing, but they don't quite deliver for the working people. Instead, they do take monies from the developers, they do take monies from the billionaires, and then they get away with it by not delivering for the working people. And this is the reason why I have to say that Democrat Party have that issue, particularly along with corporate Democrats. And this one of the reason why I'm running for Congress. Let's actually make sure we deliver for the working people, because I do think that that is the best solution to push against Trump. When we show the working people that we do deliver for them and that all Trump has is just talk and nothing can be delivered. And I think that is how the Democratic Party can win back the majority and be able to take our country back and protect our democracy.
Thank you. And this is a question from Matt, and we carried this over from the previous candidate regarding the San Francisco Unified School District's teacher strike. Tactically, what would you do right now to help? And strategically, how could you have helped to prevent the strike or to prevent the next one?
I think this one, it's. I have to say, I have not been sleeping too well because I think that it's been ongoing negotiation between our educators and the Unified School District actually for quite some time. And for all of us that have been tracking that, there is, we understand there's a lot of conversation. And for some of us also know that the district did not pay our educators during some of the most critical time, that our educator really in need of the benefits in their paycheck during COVID. That is, then they have to spend another $20 million to fix the payroll system that they couldn't quite fix and continue to be burdened by inefficiency and budget deficit. So we know that the district has been having that issue. However, we also know this to be true, though, that federal government, state government have for far too long underfunded our public education system. So this is a double whammy for San Francisco Unified School District. And this is a moment where I would say that if you haven't joined the teachers' picket line, please do. And in solidarity, I would say that we should show the district that we understand that the federal government has been underfunding our students and our education, but we absolutely cannot balance this budget on the backs of our educators and our students and families. We can do better, and we need to do better. And if I may, so sorry, I'm going to make that one last pitch. It's the reason why I do believe that as a Congress member, we have to push back on the appropriation bill, that we do not fund military force, but we fund our education, that we fund affordable childcare, we fund our K-12 classroom. And if and when, I most certainly will. And from day one, we'll continue to push our agenda. Free City College. Free City College in San Francisco give immigrants and give so many people the opportunity to higher education and workforce development. As long as you are San Francisco residents, that gives you a chance. My mom benefited from that. Didn't speak a word of English, didn't know computer, but she got a job at Chinese Hospital as an insurance claim processor because of City College of San Francisco. And we can do free city or free community college all across the nation, and we will all be in a better place.
Thank you. And along the lines of military spending, this question comes from our audience, Jim and Diana. What do you propose to stop U.S. complicity in genocide in Gaza? And the second part to that is, do you promise to not vote for any funding for Israel in all future funding measures?
I will first co-sponsor the Block the Bomb bill, Block the Bomb Act. That is the first act we must do. And with it, I want to say that we need to continue to hold Netanyahu government accountable, and that we need to make sure that they comply to this current ceasefire terms and condition, and that we got to prioritize and continue to push to prioritize humanitarian aid for food, for medication, for all the aid that we can actually send to Gaza for the most vulnerable at this moment. And this is the thing that I think that U.S. government has not been doing well, but also this is that day one, Trump administration did that. They dismantled USAID. They dismantled aid, humanitarian aid, not just for the situation in Gaza, but all around the world. In Congress, we have to push back and restore funding for USAID, and we need to reestablish USAID.
Thank you. And this question comes from, again, the audience, Karuna. The National Environmental Protection Act and its state counterpart, the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, are essential tools to protect Californians from environmental damage and transparency. Yet corporate Dems are claiming under the banner of the abundance agenda that NEPA, the national law, and CEQA need to be reformed in order to advance and build more affordable housing and climate projects. If elected to Congress, what will you do to protect the National Environmental Protection Act and preserve essential environmental review and community input?
I want to say we're already under attack at this moment. There is the offshore drilling lease being pushed and allowed by the Trump administration. We recently, as just on the local level, that we wrote a letter to the Department of Energy letting them know that we strongly oppose the offshore drilling or oil drilling lease agreements or lease permits that they're pushing. There's so much more that has to be done. I think that many of us probably find this very disheartening at this moment, that all the environmental work that has been done for the last few decades, and this is besides the corporate dam, but also just looking at the Trump administration, what they are doing right now, it's heartbreaking. Clearly, there's so many things that Trump administration is doing that I call it as like dumpster fires every day. That what are we going to do to turn it around? I think that we have no choice but to build coalition and to continue to fight. And that's what it is. We just have to continue to fight and to call out those who won't join that fight, even if it's one of our own. But even so, I would say we cannot let the Republicans get away with it either.
Thank you. And this is another live question from our audience. Val, how do you propose regulating AI and the ever-growing surveillance state that profits off of consumers' personal data?
Yeah, and first and foremost, Trump administration has his bans and not allowing state regulation and push forward. We have to push back on that to ensure that we do on the local level and the state level that we could regulate AI. I think especially in San Francisco, we really have done a lot of things in advance. That's including, I think you may all recall a few years ago, we're the first cities in the nation to ban facial recognition and understanding the privacy concern. And we're continuing to be that leading city in these debates, and we have to continue to push us forward, and that's including artificial intelligence. One of the things that I think that we need to recognize is there's no one AI regulation will fix all the regulation or problems. We can see that there's AI around, copyrights. There's AI regulation that is necessary for telecom health. There's AI regulation that is necessary that really impacting our kids, our classrooms, ChatGPT, and mental health issues. And then not to mention then, of course, taking jobs away from our workers. All these things that we must address. But I would say that we need to work together with experts to address it industry by industry. There's no one solution that can fix all AI. But the reality is AI is here. Technology is here. We cannot look away and simply ban it altogether. But what we need to do is, again, with experts to go in, look at these industry by industry, and be able to address them accordingly and regulate them accordingly.
Thank you. And we'll actually walk back over to public transportation. This is another audience question. Why did you oppose the Geary bus lane project? And as a congressional member, what can be done to improve public transit in San Francisco?
So Gary, so interesting. I have this questions like a couple times before. So Gary BRT or Gary bus lane, it's happening. It's really the side running. So originally there was proposed to be a center running lane like what you see as Van Ness BRT. During the pandemic, what consistently has been decided, not just for our district in the Richmond, but also as you can see in Japantown, that we find it a way more efficient and way faster to be able to implement is the side running lane, dedicated red lane for our bus for 38 Gary. And so that's actually what we have done, and we have dedicated side running lane for 38 Gary.
Thank you. And in the remaining 2 minutes, we'll give it actually back to you for a closing statement.
Thank you. I have said this before. It's amazing for me that I cannot believe I'm here running for Congress. And you know, if you know my personal story, as a first generation immigrant woman, Asian woman, being here and be able to run for Congress is an amazing opportunity. But I truly do believe that this is a really testimony to how great San Francisco is as a sanctuary city, as a progressive city, that someone like me can run for Congress. And it's because I also believe that I'm able to do that because of all the great progressive policies and San Francisco values that we all have embraced for so long. And I really am look forward to bringing that San Francisco policy and the agenda and the things that we have accomplished in the San Francisco value to DC. I think that this is the moment many people are looking to us and to say, this is a difficult moment for many people across the nation, that we all have faith in democracy, and especially I think for my mom and my late mother who brought me here because she believed that this is a great country, that we can, as immigrants, can be here and have better life and have better jobs and be able to afford San Francisco and be able to thrive. But we know that is slipping away from us, and that we know that is, if we don't fight for it, we may not have that future. So I'm running for Congress. Please join our campaign, and so that we could deliver that, not just for San Franciscans, but also for American people across the nation and all the way in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Give it up for Supervisor Chan. Thank you so much, Supervisor, for joining us today. And I'm going to actually bring my colleague up here for James Coleman to actually talk about a couple congressional races happening throughout the state.
All right, so we have a quick 15-minute intermission, and that's because Senator Scott Wiener will be joining us from DC, and he'll be joining us at 7:45. But first, I have a few announcements. So on some of your chairs, you might have seen a little flyer. The flyer was to a party that we'll be hosting next, not this Friday, but the following Friday outside the California Democratic Party Convention. It is the People's Party. We are co-hosting with NUHW. Thank you so much for being a co-sponsor, as well as the California Faculty Association, Our Revolution, the California Legislative Progressive Caucus. We are throwing a party outside the California Democratic Party Convention, and you're all invited. If you bring the little flyer that is either on some of your chairs or out there in the front, you get a free drink. So you should definitely come, bring some friends. We'll be joined by many elected officials statewide who will be there. We'll be joined by our national director, Maurice Mitchell. You won't want to miss it. Next, we have our Pathway to Power series. This is a series of events that we're having throughout California, and we'll be having our Bay Area one in Oakland on Thursday, February 19th. We'll also be joined by our national director, Maurice Mitchell, and talking about our many plans to build power throughout California, flip congressional seats, build our power in the state legislature, in the assembly, in the Senate, and also build a bench on our school boards, city councils, and boards of supervisors. we have a couple very exciting congressional races that we have endorsed in already in California. One is Mai Vang, who is a Sacramento City Council member running for Congress in the Sacramento area. And she is running to primary an 85-year-old congresswoman. And when I talked to Mai and why she's running, I think she was very graceful when she told me that she is running because our elders should rest. Right? Why are you 85 years old? In fighting, you got to pass the baton to the next generation, and elders must be able to rest. Randy Villegas is also running in Congress District 22.
Let's give it up for Randy.
And this is the most flippable district in the entire country. That district has a Democratic registration advantage of D+8. And that district voted in favor of Prop 50 by margin of 18 points. And so we really need Randy in that seat. Randy is on the school board, and WFP supported him then. Mai is similar. We support her run for Sacramento City Council. And this goes to our vision of being a long-term vision, right? We're not just supporting folks for the highest seats. We are building the bench at school boards and city councils so that they can also do great work in their jurisdictions, but also be there to run for state legislature and Congress when those seats are opening up. For Randy's seat in particular, he is running against another Democrat. That other Democrat, Dr. Jasmeet Bains, was also the only Democrat to vote against Prop 50 in the state legislature. And she was also the only Democrat in the legislature to vote against the masking policy, SB 805, for ICE agents. And so I believe that we really need a champion to represent the Central Valley. We need a champion to represent that area in Congress. When I think about what has been happening recently in Congress, 7 House Democrats joined Republicans in a funding bill that would triple ICE's budget. And I want to make sure that when we flip that seat, that we have a champion who will stand and oppose ICE funding, not join Republicans in funding it. And so those are a few of the exciting races that are happening. We still have 10 minutes, so feel free to grab some water, use the restroom, socialize, and we will convene in 10 minutes. And if you want to do this early, you can turn your chairs 90 degrees because Senator Scott Wiener will be right there. Right.
And while we wait, I'm just curious. People's hot takes. What do you think so far? What do you think about what the candidates said? Just people's hot takes. This is not associated with WFP, just so we know. All right, this is an audience hot take.
I was just texting a friend about this, so I might as well share here. I still don't know who I'm voting for. I'm here with AROC Action, and we haven't decided who we're endorsing, so that's a separate thing. But I have to say I was a little frustrated by Connie's response to the genocide question, where the question was very clearly, will you commit to not sending weapons to Israel? And the response was not that. I really appreciate that she's willing to say that she's going to sign block the bombs, which I don't expect that Scott will say, but I would have hoped for just a straight, yes, I will not send weapons to a country that I've acknowledged is committing a genocide. So I found that a little slightly meh.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that hot take, and we'll stay on this side. Again, this is audience hot take. Feel free to drop it in the chat if you're on Discord or on Zoom, and we'll go to, what is it? Valley. We'll go to Valley.
Yeah. I guess for me, so I'm part of the San Francisco Green Party, and so I was definitely interested to hear candidates' answers, about supporting third parties, especially in a place like California where Republicans don't really play a huge factor, at least, up here in San Francisco and places like LA. I know Central Valley is a different thing. I was hoping to hear a little bit more support. The Green Party, we are running a lot of candidates. I'm actually here with Dr. Butch Ware for governor, sitting right next to me if you want to talk to him. But we also are running a lot of candidates for Congress and different levels. We're running 5 candidates for state assembly. So, it's yeah, we need ranked choice voting, but also there are Greens running against corporate Dems and doing the same thing, progressive Dems are doing. So I was hoping to hear a little bit more explicit supports for the parties that are doing that. Also, Peace and Freedom, also running a slate, doing a really good job too.
Thank you, Val. And actually, let me plug that. If you want to hear from the governors, gubernatorial candidates, WFP's done interviews with almost all of them, including Butch Ware. So yeah, for those of you here, if you got a little hot take you want to share, and that's Butch Ware himself right there, folks. If any hot take you want to share with the audience, so we got about 6 minutes, 7 minutes.
I just feel that Saikat has a lot of credibility issues locally. He has not been here to support any progressive causes. I've been with all the fight that we've all, tried to get progressives. He has done more harm locally than help. So I don't know that I could really trust him. Yeah, at all. I completely do not trust him. Thank you.
All right, you're hearing it from the audience members, from the horse's mouth themselves. Okay, and just for any of those of us here, the next one with Senator Scott Wiener is actually going to be on the screen. So you just gotta turn your chair a little bit to be more comfortable. Yeah. So yeah, what do other people think? What's your thought? What's your hot takes? Again, if you're in the chat, just blow that chat up. Share your emojis, share your thoughts. And if you got no hot take, that's okay. We accept cool ones too.
I was really curious to hear what Connie's position on NEPA was, and I don't feel like I learned that in the answer to the question.
Thank you. You heard it here. So, I think in the interim, we got about 4 or 5 minutes, so we need to be back in the seats. But feel free to, use a restroom, use water. If you want to party with California Working Families Party next Friday, the slip thingy that James was talking about is right over there. Free drink ticket, which includes, I think, spirits and beer and wine. So let's party. If you want to just hang out, you can just hang out too. That's cool. Four-minute time check. 4-minute time check. And we got about 2 or 3 more minutes until we flip on the screen. If you have questions, I have the QR code to ask questions. I'll go ahead and just place this, and if you just pass it around, yeah. The QR code for questions is passing around. Hey, let me know when you want us to start. Hey, let me know when you want us to start. Jasmine, can you do question 29? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Ruth, can you do question 30?
You know what?
You're leaving? Okay, no problem, no problem. I appreciate your help. Make sure you've been doing this. Huh? Okay. All right, guys, we're gonna flip the switch here. We're gonna start. We're gonna restart. So if you can please find your seat, please find your seat. If you're in a seat, we're gonna be facing the TV, the large projector screen right there. So if you are in a seat, we're gonna be facing the projector right there, but it will still work very similarly as before. And the questions QR code is coming around. If you would like to ask a question, please submit it through the QR code. And James, when you give me the cue, I'll do the intro. And we appreciate everybody's energy and patience thus far. If you are learning a lot, make some noise. All right, we're learning some. We good, James? We got some tech. No worries. Techies sometimes try to ruin what we're trying to do. Not today. We got the people. We got you. All right. So I will go ahead and just speak a little bit about the forum, and just as a reminder for those who may be joining us on Discord or Zoom, or well, for those here, you'll hear this for the 3rd time. So appreciate your patience. But the forum, each candidate's got 30 minutes to speak, answer several questions. Many of the questions are coming from members, dues-paying members of the Working Families Party themselves, as well as the audience. And we're going to be cycling through the questions, back to back to back to back to back to back to back. And now that we've got the tech set up, we'd like to introduce and welcome Senator Scott Wiener from DC. He's there on business. Scott, Senator Wiener has served on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors from 2011 to 2016, representing District 8, Harvey Milk's former district, it should be noted, where he chaired the San Francisco County Transportation Authority, following nearly a decade as a deputy city attorney in San Francisco's city attorney's office. He was first elected as to the California State Senate in 2016, where he currently chairs the Senate Budget Committee and is running for Congress in California's 11th district. Senator Wiener is known for his prolific legislative record on housing, transportation, and LGBTQ rights. So please give a warm welcome to Senator Wiener. And sorry, Senator. And we'll give you a few minutes to do an opening statement, and we'll jump right into questions.
Okay, great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for having me today, and thank you for all that you do. It has been a great honor to represent the great city of San Francisco and northern San Mateo County in the state Senate for the last nearly a decade, and serve on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors before that. As state senator, I have worked very, very hard to achieve progressive goals for our city and for our state, including taking on some of the largest industries in the world, taken on and beaten the oil industry in our effort to require large corporations. The law I passed to require large corporations to disclose their carbon emissions. taken on the health insurance industry to force them to cover more mental health and addiction treatment, and we prevailed. We took on the drug middlemen, the pharmacy benefit managers, to crack down on their abuses that were jacking up drug costs and killing off community pharmacies. We were able to defeat telecom and cable industries in the law that I passed to establish net neutrality in California. And we fought with big tech and ultimately prevailed in passing AI safety legislation. I am consistently rated as one of the most progressive members of the legislature, with very high lifetime scores from the California Labor Federation, California Environmental Voters, California Consumer Federation, and other critical progressive voices. We're in a moment in time where our democracy is at threat. I think we all know this. Authoritarianism is on the rise. We have to stop them. We have to get them out of office. I have been a very, very strong voice against this authoritarianism, including authoring legislation as we speak to allow people to sue federal agents right now that they cannot be sued when they violate people's rights. And also California's ban on ICE and other law enforcement wearing masks. We had a little setback in the courts today, but we're working to fix that. And we need to get these people out of office. But once we do, that's not enough. We have to make sure that a psycho grifter like Donald Trump can never get elected again. It shouldn't have even been a close election. And it's because all too often government has failed people. The cost of living is too high. Housing is too expensive. Energy is too expensive. Transportation is too difficult. People don't believe with all too frequently that their kids are going to have better lives than they had. And when people are struggling and when people have despair, they will sometimes take chances, like voting for someone like Donald Trump, who lied and said he was going to make things better. I am someone who knows how to get things done, and I know how to build coalitions to get things done. It's not good enough to have progressive ideas. You have to have the ability to turn those progressive ideas into progressive laws, and I've done that, whether around housing, healthcare, energy, or any other number of issues. We're getting good support from labor. I'm proud to be endorsed by UAW, UFCW, by National Union of Healthcare Workers, by the carpenters, cement masons, and a number of other organizations and elected officials, and be honored to have your support.
Thank you, Senator. And we'll go to Josh for the first question. Allah, jump so you can see. I'm not sure if you can see us from there, but.
Hi, Senator. Our first question is, what Congress members or senators do you see yourself working with the most, and what caucuses would you join and why?
Well, I would very much want to be part of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. There are other caucuses I want to be a part of in terms of the Equality Caucus and Jewish Caucus and others, but definitely the Progressive Caucus. In terms of who I would work with, I would work with anyone who wanted to work with me to achieve important goals, and that means working with very progressive lefty Democrats to moderate Democrats to everyone else. And there are times when you can work bipartisan. It's not as often as probably it used to be, but we still see people working across the aisle in Congress today. The Epstein files was the most recent example of that. So there are great members of Congress across the spectrum. I will be most aligned with progressives in the House, but you got to be able to work with people you disagree with as well.
Thank you. We'll go to Jasmine with the next question. And Senator, just as a note, some of us have heard the question 2 times, but I'll guarantee that you will learn something new this 3rd time.
Okay, excellent.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. My question is, one reality of working in Congress is that the pace of change is much slower than at the state or local level. So it may take many years to pass legislation. What is the single piece of legislation that you will champion?
Well, I think there are various. I mean, I very much want to see us establish Medicare for all, single payer. So that's incredibly important. Until we get there, we need to hold insurance companies accountable, and that's work that I've done and we will continue to do. I also want to get the federal government very much back into housing, which used to be the case and then it stopped 40, 50 years ago. And so we need the federal government to be back into housing investment and various reforms in a very strong way.
Thank you. We'll go to Lena here.
Hi, Senator. Increasingly, American voters are becoming more disillusioned and fed up with both of the two major parties. Do you support third parties having a stronger voice in American politics? And if so, will you make this happen?
I think it's
How will you
important.
make this happen?
Oh, sorry. I think it's important to have voices, and I think third parties absolutely have a role to play. The system that we have in our Constitution is not exactly as super welcoming of third parties, but I do think it's important for third parties to have good ballot access and to be able to be part of the process.
Thank you, Senator. And another question that's come from our members. How will you preserve and prioritize working families' right to clean air, clean water, and open space? And will you commit to holding corporate polluters and oil companies accountable?
Yes, absolutely. And I've put my money where my mouth is. I've shown a willingness and ability to hold oil companies and polluters generally accountable. I was the author of Senate Bill 253, which was a major environmental community priority where we required all large corporations to disclose their carbon emissions, including from their supply chains. And this was a massive fight with basically the entire corporate world, with the oil companies, the banks, the manufacturers, et cetera, because they don't want to disclose and be transparent about their emissions because they want to be able to greenwash. So we took us a few years, but we got it done. We beat them by the skin of our teeth, and we got that signed into law, and it's being implemented now. So I've very, very strong supporter of accountability and transparency for polluters. We have to have strong clean air and clean water laws and rules. We have, especially the water system. The water systems in this country, there's too many communities that do not have access to clean drinking water, and that is it's a scandal and it is shameful. And so that is going to take a lot of investment to make sure that we are fixing these water systems, ensuring everyone has access to clean water, and committed to that.
Thank you, Senator. And we'll give it over here to John. And again, I'll just jump just to help see where he's at.
Hello, Senator. What policies do you support to make sure that the richest among us, like billionaires and corporations, pay their fair share in taxes?
I've in the Senate, including during my time as Senate Budget Chair, we advocated to raise the corporate tax in California to help fund basic services in California. Corporations got a 40% tax cut during Trump 1, and that just got extended in Trump 2 in the big, horrible bill. And so we have pushed, and I've supported raising the corporate tax in California. We should be reversing big portions of the Bush tax cuts from way back when, and the Trump tax cuts. The lion's share of those tax cuts need to go away. The ones relating to higher income people and corporations and so forth. I've also been a proponent of having a good estate tax. I introduced an estate tax for California twice. The voters banned estate taxes back in the early 80s. So I tried to get a ballot measure on to try to revisit that. That did not go very far in the legislature. but it is important. The federal estate tax exemption has been raised so dramatically over the last few decades that the estate tax federally is a shadow of what it used to be. I also supported the ballot measure a few years ago to raise income tax on high earners to pay for climate needs, which failed at the ballot. So I've been a supporter of progressive taxation, and I will continue to be.
Thank you. We'll go to Danny for the next question.
Hi, Senator Wiener. At the previous WFP forum, you didn't answer whether you thought what Israel is doing to Gaza is a genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Days after, you posted a video saying that you do believe it should be called a genocide. Can you walk us through your thought process for what the turning point was for you, and what should the U.S. do to end the genocide?
Sure, absolutely. I have been very vocal about what I believe are Israel's extreme reactions and actions in destroying Gaza. And before October 7th, in 2021, when Hamas launched rockets at Israel, and Israel responded, in my view, in a disproportionate way, causing significant death and destruction among Palestinians in Gaza. I spoke out against that. After Hamas's terrorist attack on October 7th and massacre and mass rape in southern Israel, I very quickly I condemned that. And I also very quickly began opposing Israel's escalations in Gaza, starting on October 13th, 2023, when Israel ordered 1 million Palestinians to relocate from northern Gaza to southern Gaza. I opposed that. And then I continued to oppose Israel's escalations. And over time, I used words that are very similar to genocide. I used words and phrases like, quote unquote, cratering an entire population, absolute destruction, a moral stain. I refer to it as a shanda, which is Yiddish for disgrace. So I have used words very similar to genocide. Within the Jewish community, I said this in the video, the word genocide is a very sensitive one, and the community is very divided on it. And for a lot of people, it is very raw. And so I chose to use different words that were very similar and, in my view, quite equivalent to genocide. But I did not use the word genocide. At no point did I oppose folks who were using that word. But ultimately, I decided to use it. And so you don't have to take my word for it in terms of what I've said over time, because my social media has it all. You can go back to 2021, see what I said, back to October and November and December 2023 and so forth. And I'm the only candidate who can say that, because one of my candidates deleted his entire social media, or at least his Twitter, before getting in the race. And the other has her Twitter on lockdown. So mine is fully transparent. You can see everything I've said. And I chose to use different words, but ultimately I chose to use the word genocide, and I stand by that.
Thank you. This is coming from one of our member labor unions, SEIU 1021. They fought for a regional transit measure to be funded by a progressive gross receipts tax. They released data showing that a gross receipts tax pulled better than a regressive sales tax. As the author of Senate Bill 63 to enable a regional revenue measure to fund public transportation, why did you choose to write it as a regressive sales tax rather than a progressive tax that would have made larger corporations pay more?
So we worked closely with SEIU 10-1 and many other stakeholders to save public transportation in the Bay Area. And we need to be very clear that if nothing happens, then transit will collapse in the Bay Area. BART will completely collapse. Muni will probably have to cut service by as much as half. AC Transit will have huge service cuts. Caltrain will basically collapse. And so this is very, very high stakes for the region. And so for the last few years, I have stepped up and I've been the leading voice in the legislature to fund transit and to prevent service cuts. And we were able in 2023 to obtain $400 million for Bay Area transit operations to prevent service cuts. And we were successful. This year, we tried to get more money and said it's going to be a loan, but we finally were able to get the administration to finalize that agreement. And then we need a longer term fix for funding so that we don't have to keep fighting this fight every year or two. And that's what SB 63 is. And SB 63, yes, is a sales tax. And I know there were some who wanted a gross receipts tax. A gross receipts tax would not, in my view, and I'm pretty confident in saying this, would not have passed the legislature and been signed into law. And so we could have fought that fight for a gross receipts tax and then had no bill and then have no ballot measure and have BART, Muni, AC, Caltrain either crater or have massive service cuts. So people can have whatever view they want about loving or hating a sales tax, loving or hating a gross receipts tax, and there were very strong views on both sides on both of these. But I wanted to make sure we actually could save these systems. And I am here to tell you that a gross receipts tax would not have been signed into law. And then we would have nothing. And so now we have a measure. We have the mayor's companion measure for Muni, and it is essential that both of those pass.
Thank you, Senator. We've got an audience question that Jasmine will be asking.
Hi, Senator Wiener. So in the last election, the California Apartment Association spent millions of dollars to defeat Prop 33, a rent control measure that you also opposed. Why did you oppose this, and will you stand up against the core financial interests of the California Apartment Association in favor of expanding tenant protections?
Yeah, I did not oppose it, so that is not accurate. And I did not oppose it because I have, for many, many years, going back to when I was first running for the Democratic County Central Committee in 2004, I have supported reform of Costa-Hawkins. I think it is way too broad. And that is why you focus on that. You should also look at my votes in the legislature because I have supported and voted for Costa-Hawkins reform. So Senator Wahab had a bill to allow gradually for new construction to go into rent control. I voted for that bill, both in committee and on the floor. It got destroyed on the Senate floor. I believe, if I recall correctly, only 13 senators voted for it, and I was one of those 13 or whatever the exact number was. And so I stand by that vote, and unfortunately that bill didn't pass. I also supported legislation to extend the period for the notice to pay rent or quit, which is now 72 hours. So if you're behind on your rent or have another lease violation, you get a notice and you have 72 hours to cure it. And if you don't, you forfeit your lease. The bill extended that to 14 days. I voted for that. Both of those bills were very aggressively opposed by the Apartment Association. And I supported those bills. So I think that speaks volumes. It wasn't just an endorsement. It was my actual vote as a state senator. And so I never expect people can agree or disagree with me on any issue, but it is important to look at my full record and not cherry pick.
Thank you, Senator. And our apologies for getting your position incorrect. These next two questions were actually asked of the previous two candidates as well, and they both come from the audience. Matt is asking, regarding the San Francisco Unified School District teacher strike, tactically, what would you do right now to help? And strategically, how could you have helped to prevent the strike or to prevent the next one if you are sitting member of Congress?
So my view is that you have to take every effort and negotiation. I support union has the right to collectively bargain. and to strike, and I support those critically important rights. I also think it's important to take every effort at negotiating a resolution, and as I always be available to help. And so now they are on strike. I know that there are conversations that are continuing, and I know the mayor is also involved, and it's in everyone's interest to get this done. We know that public education has always been underfunded. We've made some strides over the last almost 15 years to improve funding in California for public education. During my 2 years as chair of the Senate Budget Committee, we had huge budget deficits both times, and both times we fully protected K through 12 funding. So I tried to play my part and use the power that I have to make sure that we are actually giving our schools, districts, the funding that they need, understanding that we need to do more.
Thank you. And this comes from Karuna. The National Environmental Protection Act, or NEPA, and its state counterpart, the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, are tools meant to protect Californians from environmental damage and transparency. You've been a critic of CEQA in the state Senate in order to advance and build more affordable housing and climate projects. In D.C., Trump, Republicans, and corporate Dems are also working to weaken NEPA. What is your stance on protecting NEPA and preserving essential environmental review and community input?
Yeah, so I think that when it comes to environmental laws, it's important to have environmental laws advance environmental protection. And so, for example, for CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, I have always been of the view that CEQA plays an important role in protecting the environment, protecting communities from toxics, and so forth. And I fully support that. We've also seen CEQA be horribly abused at times, abused by NIMBYs to stop housing, including affordable housing, or to slow it down, to make it more expensive, to make it take years, litigate, etc. We have seen businesses use CEQA to attack their competitors. We recently saw the oil industry sue under CEQA to stop the city of LA from phasing out oil extraction. Literally, the oil industry using CEQA to try to block LA from ending oil extraction. And so when you see, we've seen CEQA be used to stop child care centers, to stop a food bank. And when you see that kind of abuse, that doesn't mean you get rid of the law, and I would oppose getting rid of it. But it does mean that we should always be willing to take a look and say, hey, what's going on here? And do we really want people to be able to use an environmental law to promote oil drilling, or to stop child care centers, or to stop the most environmentally sustainable kind of housing near transit or near job centers? And so I think it's important to have the best possible environmental laws, and that's why I have, again, a very high lifetime scores, all in the 90s, often mid to high 90s with the major environmental organizations, and I stand by that record. And we want to make sure that environmental laws are actually being used to protect the environment and not for other purposes.
Thank you. And this is the last question. We would, following this question, like to give you 2 minutes for a closing statement. So the last question is coming from our audience, Fadi. How would you confront current Democratic leadership, which seems to be stalling or giving in on things like DHS funding and DHS's Department of Homeland Security funding on the Department of Defense budget?
Yeah, I think it's really important for Democrats in confronting this kind of authoritarianism, including the DHS/ICE/Border Patrol secret terror police, to use every ounce of power and leverage that we have. And if that means a government shutdown, if that means any other number of things that are, not that can be, very challenging. But what's happening now is horrific, and communities are being torn apart, and people are being shot, and children are being used as bait. It's just horrifying. It's unacceptable. And as Democrats, we have to use every ounce of power and leverage that we have. And I've done that in the legislature, and it's very hard for states to fight back against an overreaching federal government. But I and others have been able to find ways, find every reservoir of power that we as a state have and use it, even if there are risks in doing so. And so Democrats in Congress should be doing the same thing. I did not agree with the votes in the Senate from Democrats to allow the government to reopen without really getting much in return. And that is my approach. And it pains me to say that. I don't want to shut down the government, but sometimes you have to hold your ground and stand your ground when it comes to an authoritarian fascist regime that is upending our democracy and destroying communities. We need to fight.
Thank you, Senator. And we'd like to actually just toss it right back to you for a closing 2 minutes closing statement.
Great. Thank you so much. As I said at the beginning, it's not enough to have progressive ideas. You can say all of the nicest sounding progressive things. You can go on every progressive podcast and pontificate until the cows come home about all the progressive things that you think should happen. If you don't have the ability to turn those progressive ideas into actual progressive laws, then it's not worth very much. I'm the only candidate in this race that has demonstrated the ability to build the necessary coalitions to take very, very aggressive progressive ideas to defeat industry, corporations, and to enact them into law. And I look forward to doing that work in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please give it up for Senator Scott Wiener. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And for all of us here, especially those on Zoom and Discord, you know what? Before we break, just turn to someone, give each other a high five or a fist bump, because we made it, y'all. We made it. It's 8:16. We made it. We're here. All right. So that concludes the forum for today. If you are interested, we're going to have that party next Friday, the 20th, 8:30 p.m. at the Temple. And if you would like to be a part of this endorsement process, become a dues-paying member. I'll keep it at that. And thanks for joining us, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Zoom and Discord.